Hi, this is Karen Hamilton with Sacred Seven Healing. I wanted to talk to you today about two things. One is a message that I received today, and that is that we are very close to disclosure. And we are also very close to the currency reset that will be coming through. And there'll be a form of debt forgiveness for countries, and we'll be moving into the new paradigm. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you today about, well, and maybe I should just even say what disclosure is, and that will be basically everything that's been happening in the world that has been orchestrated by the hidden hand, and things that people did maybe thought were conspiracy theory, they're going to find out is actually truth. And there'll be a variety of things like that. And it could be a very enlightening period for some people and a very painful and difficult period for other people. So I'm just saying, don't go into fear. Whatever comes up, we will get through this time. And there is going to be a lot of information coming out. Some people may be aware of this and some won't be, about children and what's been happening underground and some of the different things that have been going on throughout the world underground. And we need to understand it. It's very important for us to be able to move through this time and understand what happened, because the only way you can change something is acknowledging its reality and then finding a better way forward from there. So I just ask that everybody please go into your heart, stay heart-centered at this time, stay calm, and just know that there are very benevolent energy and forces that are working on your behalf to make this world a better place and to give the human race a chance to have real freedom and understand what that means. And this has been a very long process of thousands of years to get to this point. And try not, when sometimes we're confronted with a change, and I think I talked about that a little bit in a video, sometimes we're forced into a change. I just want you to not look at this in a negative way and try to work through it. It's going to be challenging for everyone because we've all grown up and been raised a certain way of understanding, and this is going to challenge every thought, everything you've ever believed. It's going to challenge everything. There pretty much won't be anything that isn't going to be challenged. So that was one of the messages that I received today, is that we are very close to this. I've known this is coming for a very long time. And there's other people that have talked about this as well, but I started getting these types of messages probably about 5 years ago. And it's connected to an energetic frequency shift. There's many layers to this. But I had written something, this was back on the November of 2019. And this was another message that I received, so just bear with me because I'll be looking down and looking up, but I'll do my best, not to stare down at a screen, so I'll try to keep it upright. You can see it here that I'm reading it off. Anyway, I had posted this. I create many posts. I've created over 300 and some odd posts over a matter of a couple of years. I think it started in 2016. So for 3-4 years now I've been doing this. But I've got a lot of information, and it's important that we, I think it's important now that I share. I'm saying I share with you that you and I or whoever is out there watching this, understand that I could not put this out, I didn't feel, until the appropriate time. And now I feel this is the appropriate time to start revealing more information for people that are now going to be looking. And there's many people that are going to need guidance at this time. And at the end of my videos, I've now included my phone number and my email for contacting me if you have questions. I will do my best to try to answer any questions people have. Because I think we need to help each other through this time. But I've already gone through a great deal of the process that you will probably be going through coming up in the near future. Anyway, this is regarding the rainbow light body. And when I began to go through this process of ascension, basically, and awakening, I didn't understand any of what was happening to me. I had no clue. I had really no one to turn to try to understand all the different energy experiences I was having. And I just wanted to say that from the time I was very little, I was able to see beings and different things like that. So that it wasn't like it was completely foreign to me, but it wasn't like in my face continuously when I went through a full push of an awakening. And for people, it can be triggered by any kind of event. It could be trauma, it could be other things. Sometimes people don't even know what triggers it. It's just your time to wake up is really what I feel it is. Anyway, this is the rainbow light body. It is a ascension vehicle. Your body becomes a stargate, which you are guided through many higher vibration, through many higher vibrational beings on the other side of the veil to teach you how to go through the transfiguration, which I'd mentioned before. I'd kind of talked about kind of what that is on my last video, and wearing the garment of the Christ light. Once you achieve this level, you can actually bilocate. You can take on any form depending on what you are called to do. So this information I'm giving you is really further into the ascension process, but there will be people that will be trying to figure this out because they've already started the process. But, you know, again, not knowing who to turn to or understand what this is possibly. And this isn't a new thing. I believe that this has been around because really I found the rainbow light body, actually quite a few years later after I was having all these energy experiences. And what happens is your body starts to have color. Like when I would go to bed at night, I would lay down and I could actually see the energy waves. That's the best way I can describe it, of different colors of light moving through me. And I wasn't having like an epileptic seizure. There wasn't anything weird going on. I was just like, I was laying there looking up at the ceiling and I could not only see it, I could feel the waves moving around me and through me. And it wasn't negative. It wasn't scary or anything, but it was beautiful. Really, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just amazing. But I couldn't find anybody that understood what I was talking about when I would explain it. I had some friends that were into healing and I would try to talk to them about the experience and they didn't understand what it was. And I did find eventually quite a few years later, and that's why I wrote it on 2019, was that's actually when I found out that ancient Tibetan monks call it the rainbow body. And that is, their description of it is, I experienced it, so I'm telling you it's as close as you can get to what it is. But I'll tell you from my perspective, and also what was channeled to me as I was writing this, as to what it is, so that I could further serve and help other people. Anyway, so it's to teach you about once you receive the Christ light. And that is really the Christ light. And that's when they talk about Jesus and his Technicolor coat. Well, that's the Technicolor coat. You are actually seeing your own aura of light moving in and out of you and connecting to you, and that you're part of it. The difference is you actually begin to feel your own energy too. It's not just like you see it, people can get an aura picture done and you see it and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. You actually can physically see it and you can feel your own light. It's such an amazing gift. Anyway, once you achieve this level, you can bilocate, which I mentioned, and basically transform into just about anything when you're working through the veil on the other side in other dimensions, interdimensionally, or transdimensionally. You can move around, and because you have taken on the certain energy, it does allow you to take on different expressions of you and your higher consciousness. So it's different levels. And the other aspect of that is when you go through a process of the bilocate, and this is my experience, so maybe somebody else can say something different, but I'll tell you what happened with me is I found out that I have like these rings, these sapphire rings that run around my body, and I have 3 rings that run around my body. And what happens is one goes in one polarity direction, the other goes in the other polarity direction, the other goes in the other polarity direction. So it's rings within rings within ring, like it's connected. And you actually do form your own physical light body vehicle. That is what it is. So I think, and this is just my opinion, some of the UFOs that you see are actual people or beings of light that are moving interdimensionally through time and space. Now, there are some vehicles that you'll see that are made of metal. Those are man-made. Those are not the light body. But when you take on the light body, you have your own vehicle of light. And some people refer to it as the Merkaba. And, that's a name that somebody coined, and that's, their expression of it. But I look at it as slightly different than that, because the way they describe it isn't exactly the way it happened for me. So maybe it is even a personal thing. I don't know. Anyway, so, when you're bilocating, again, I mentioned this in another video, you are called upon to do things out of love and compassion. Now, some people can astral travel, they can project themselves, but it is dangerous because they don't understand how to work through the time and space continuum without getting attachments onto them. So I went through a process of learning how to make sure that I stay heart-centered as I go through the process. And some people can do it through meditation. I can just do it, lay down in bed, and I'm out of my body and I'm gone. That's basically how it is for me. I can actually feel myself floating out of my body, and then I lift up, and then I'm gone. And I would look asleep to everybody, but I actually can feel when I'm moving out of my body. I can sense that energy shifting, and I feel it's hard to explain unless you've experienced, but you just feel this lifting, and it's like you're floating above your own body. That's how it feels. Anyway, so I'll just continue on. So your job then, when you're working at those kind of levels, is to work as a universal being, spreading love, compassion, and joy to all. That's your intention as you're working through this process. Before receiving the garment of light, for me, what happened was I had a white wormhole that actually opened up that I could physically see with these 2 eyes, fully awake. I saw it. And it allowed me to be able to actually go back and connect to my higher self. And what happened was I, and again, I didn't have any guidance on this, so I didn't know how to express it any differently than I was all of a sudden walking on this, what looked like a rainbow bridge made of energy. It was like all the colors of the rainbow, and I literally saw myself walking on it. And as I was walking on it, I transitioned from being a female that I am now into a male as I was crossing through. And then I came to a gate, which was a beautiful gate that, you know, was in another dimension. And there was a being there that asked me, well, and he saw me as, and I could see that I could see myself had transformed. I had a long white beard and white hair. I looked like some old sage with a white gown, and got to this gate, and he opened the gate and he asked me if what he said to me is, it's good to see you're back. And I didn't have a clue what the heck he's talking about. What do you mean back? I didn't even know I was gone. Like, what do you mean? And he said, don't you remember? And I said, no, I don't remember. What do you mean? And then he said, he told me it was the City of Light, and that I was one of the co-creators, he said, of the City of Light. And so I started, whatever the City of Light is, I was walking around and trying to figure out what was going on. And the interesting thing about it is it was all these opalescent, pearlescent type crystals was the actual main part of the city. There was a pathway going up, and the further you looked, there was a building that was very beautiful, like it looked temple-like, you know. And I'm not a religious person, so, you know, I'll just say that. And so they took me through this, so he guided me through this process, and then I went back and I actually met my family that was on the other side. And then from there, he showed me, we went further on through the pathway, and then it was like we were floating, we weren't even walking. Then we went to this place that looked like the temple, and as we walked in, he showed me, there's this room, this is your room, this is stuff you do in this room, and there was all kinds of interesting things in there. And then he further took me down the hall, and then there was this woman in white who came out, and she said, can I help you? And I asked her what this was, and she said, it's the Hall of Wisdom. And so she guided me, and it looks like kind of like a library feel to it, but not, because it was massive in some senses. So she told me that every record of everything that every person had ever done, every contract of every person that existed, and what, you know, things that they had done or what they were connected to or who they were connected to, was in these card catalog type things. And when I wanted to see what it was, the card catalog literally just came out like an etheric tray pulled out, and in it you could actually see there was like it looked like papers and stuff, and you just reach in and you could pull it out, and you could see there was contracts of people, of different things that they had agreed they would do, or connections. And so I'd asked her if you could actually, you know, change contracts and do that type of thing, and she specifically said there was only one way you were ever allowed to change a contract. So, and I'll leave that for another story as to how that all went, but I discovered kind of how that works. And so the contracts can be changed, but it's very, you have to get permission, there's a higher level you have to go to, and it goes kind of like that. Anyway, so the rainbow body, again, going back to my post that I tried to write, and I will post this on my website so people can just read it and not listen to me reading it, because that might be just annoying for people. But so this wormhole opens up. That's what happened to me when I went through this process. They told me who I was. I was then able to understand, but I still had trouble kind of grasping if this is real or what is this. I don't know. But over the years, it just kept coming back up, and I finally had to accept, okay, this is the truth, and this is the way it is, and this is your truth of who you are, and just accept it and not worry about it. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, so they said that so this is what I wrote: your physical body form, when you go through this process of the Christ light, turns into light orbs, but you are able to rebuild it and hold a physical form which continues to operate whether you have stepped out for a minute to work on the other side of the veil, or whether you are, to work, or whenever you are called upon. And this, they told me that this is what happened to Enoch. And I actually went through another situation where they took me into this area that was like this big, I don't know what it was, like whether it was a UFO, I have no idea, but it was like this big wheel thing. And inside there were all these beings, and they had energy faces. You could see that they looked human-like, but their faces were just pure light. So, imagine like if my face was all just like light, you can't make out the dark features, but you can see it's there, right? So looking at it through, like a shower glass, like through the shower and the water's running down, it's that kind of whiteness, like it's murky. You can't totally make them out, but you can tell they're beings. They all had white gowns on. They all looked like judges or something. I don't know, but they were white gowns, not black and white. And the other thing that they showed me was that there is a square. So the way it's set up as a wheel, there is a being on every one of the sectors of the wheel. And I believe there was about 12, like a clock. It was like that shape, And they each had their own throne chair. They were each on a throne going all the way around. And they led me in, and they basically said, this is your seat. Like everybody else was already sitting except me. So I guess I was late to the party or something. Anyway, so I sat down, and then this is where they went through the process of, you've been redeemed and blah, blah, blah. And they gave me all these different gifts, and they gave me, I think it was a staff, and they gave me scrolls. They told me they were the scrolls of the seven, what did they say? They called it the scrolls of the 7 stars. And on the other side was it was like made of stone. So it was like a book, but it was stone, almost like tablets put together. And it was huge. And even though I'm in another state, when they set it on me, I was like, oh, this is heavy. And they told me that this is the Book of God codes. That's what they referred to it. It was the Book of God. They told me everything was in there, and that you could open it and read at will. You're now connected to this book. So I thought that was interesting. And then they had, the other thing that was interesting was they had what I believe was Jesus up there. I'm pretty sure he was there. There was other angels there. So there was the 4 major angels that were there, and the main angel was Metatron. And standing there, and he was very tall, and standing next to Metatron was a smaller being, and that was Enoch. That's what they told me. And they said that Enoch, in his Ba form, which is your inner body form, that was what he looked like. But when he takes on Metatron, that's what he looks like. So he is one and the same. That's what they explained to me. It's the same being. Metatron is Enoch. So for those that study the Bible, from what I was shown, that's actually the truth. And because I know there's been a lot of people said what happened. And what they told me, so this is why I brought that wheel thing up with all these beings, is because they told me that what I went through this process, finding out who I was, all this stuff, was what happened to Enoch, was the exact same. And that he was brought up, and that he was shown around, and then he came back and he was able to tell people. I believe that's, I shouldn't be quoting the Bible because I don't read the Bible. Maybe I better get my facts straight, but anybody who can give me that information, I'll try and look it up and put it on my website. But so they explained that's actually, in fact, what happened to Enoch, was the very same thing. So the rainbow body itself is, you have so then you come back, you're back into your body. So it's almost like you died. You have a near death, I think it might have been like a near death experience. But when you come back, you retain all the memories of everything that happened on that other side. And the other thing about it is, when you have this rainbow energy, you can go back and forth. And so you can even coexist on both sides of the fence. So let's say you're sitting on a fence, you can see everything going on here, but you can also see what's happening over here. And you are literally straddling the fence between this world and that world at any given time. And you can become more into this world, or you can straddle the fence and then become more into this world. And you can transition between through this energy field that you now have, and you're protected. So you're able to move back and forth through time and space to be able to do this, working interdimensionally and going into this wormhole. But I had many experiences, and have had many experiences where I've even been coming back into my body, and I've got stuff trying to follow me in, and I even will remember I was doing stuff on the other side. I may not know every detail, but I know quite a bit, and enough to realize that I was working on the other side. That's how I started to realize I was actually doing stuff. And all of it wasn't negative. It was all seemed to be working for the greater good of humanity, trying to free humanity on one level, just doing my little part, whatever that is. And, I was told that I was chosen, but I think that I don't know, because that's just such a slippery slope to make yourself sound special. I don't feel like I have I'm just, mother, I got 3 kids. I don't consider myself to be special in any weird way or anything like that. I think I'm pretty normal, but I do have these experiences and these abilities, and I've realized over time, the more I've developed them, the more powerful they've gotten. And not powerful I'm more powerful than anybody else. It's just that I've realized my own power, and I'm able to utilize it to help people and to do things that I feel would be beneficial. And again, everything that I do is I make sure that I'm connected to the heart. Sometimes I'm called upon to do things that are on a higher level that maybe I don't even fully understand the purpose behind it, but then certain things happen and it all makes sense after the fact, type of thing. But I've had experiences where somebody that I knew fairly well had passed. Well, what happened was I had a dream that he was dying in this dream. And I saw these beings or angels come to me in my dream and said to me, "You're needed. You need to go talk to this person, because you need to talk to them because they are basically trying to kill themselves, and you need to talk to them about this because it's not their time. So they literally transported me, and next thing I know, I'm standing in front of this guy, and I'm telling him that you're not to do this to yourself because you are loved and you need to stay in the physical world right now because you don't understand what is to come. And I said to him that it's very important that you don't do this right now, that you need to come back, and you're being called back into your body because there are things that you will do that will be serving and helping others that you don't understand yet. And you haven't quite hit that point in your life that you would be needed for this. And the other thing I can say is when I see somebody who's crossed over, their eyes shimmer. They look like they vibrate. They don't look normal. Like I can tell immediately whether there's an energy approaching me. I see the eyes. I know right away. It's the eyes of the window to the soul. I can tell that they've crossed over. Same thing with this guy. So a couple weeks went by, and I heard from another friend that in fact he had tried to commit suicide. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. Do I reach out to him or what do I do? And I left it for a while, and then I made a decision. I felt this was the right thing to do. I contacted him. I sent him a message, and I basically told him everything that I had experienced and that I wanted to now solidify that he needed to not do this to himself. And here's why. And so I told him that in the dream state, and he did tell me that when he woke up, he came back into his body. I guess he had died, and he had a heart attack on the table, and they were not able to resuscitate him. He was dead for something like, I think he said something like 10 minutes. They could not get a heartbeat, and then he came back suddenly. And he said that when he woke up, he was furious that he was back. I'm not saying sometimes people choose to exit that way. I am not saying that it's the wrong thing or that shouldn't happen. It just happened to be in his case. They knew I had a energy link to him. That's why they came and got me. So I guess my point of all of this is just to say that there are helpers on the other side that do protect us and are trying to guide us and give us, that know our plan of why we're here. And everybody asks the question, well, what's my purpose? We all have a purpose. We all have a purpose. Maybe it seems like your life is pointless, but that might be your perception. It might be the way you're seeing things. You don't know how, like I said, in the Hall of Wisdom, we all have these contracts. You don't know what your contract is when you're here. That's all part of the game. You don't know why you're here. Well, you got to kind of figure it out. And some people never do figure it out totally. But I don't want people to lose hope in their lives because you are here for a reason. And we are all connected to each other on many levels. Like I said, they came and got me only because I had talked to him a couple of times. We weren't close friends. I just had an acquaintance with him. But it's very important that people don't lose hope. And when you are going through depression, it's because your head is down and you need to change your polarity back upright. And sometimes these drugs that doctors are giving you, you got to be very careful because it's really not helping your polarity. It's just a temporary band-aid. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not recommending one way or the other. I'm not a doctor, but I am just saying that energetically you can work on your body as maybe you are taking something, just to start stabilizing your body and changing your mindset and working through a process. And I think it's very important to do that if you're going to be taking any kind of medication, is to make sure you get help. But again, working on both sides of the fence, where they're able to come and get me and I'm able to go to wherever he was energetically. And when I saw him, I just see white light around him, almost like a plasmic field, and he's just standing there. And I come up and I meet him, and that's when I talk to him. And it's funny because it does remind me of when I was a kid. I saw this movie, I think it was Warren Beatty was in the movie called Heaven Can Wait, I think it was called. That scene, there's a scene in there where he's up in the etheric clouds and he's talking to some, I don't know if he's an angel or what he was, I can't remember the whole story, but he told him he had to go back, or there was something. That is exactly kind of what it looks like. You do see them as just all white light. There's no buildings or anything else. You see them in the white light. So it's just an energy field. They're up in a plasmic level. It's a stage above. So if we're in the 3D world, there's a plasmic field that goes between us and the next realm or dimension. So you just can move your body up into this plasmic field and you see all kinds of stuff going on up there. It's amazing what actually is going on up there. But, and I've had other experiences with people that have crossed over as well. And they have come to me and I've been able to be told, and I don't like to really deal with that because it's very difficult. If I'm given a message, it's always complicated to know if it's the right thing to do to tell the person. So it puts me in a very complicated position. Plus, it's a real act of faith on my part that I'm receiving the appropriate message, because I have no clue. It might be something so random, it doesn't make any sense to me, but it means everything to that other person. But I don't know. So I just choose to have faith that what I get is correct. And, I'm certainly not perfect. I've had experiences where I received a lot of information. It wasn't correct. And, it's difficult then, because then you've maybe upset people and you just don't want to do that. So it's always touchy. I'm very careful about that. But anyway, I thought I would talk about the fact that I think we're very close to disclosure. There's going to be a lot of things wrapped into what I'd really wanted to talk today about, was this rainbow body and sitting on the fence between two worlds and being able to work and operate in either side. And that again is taking on the Technicolor coat, the rainbow coat that you can actually physically see and feel. It becomes part of your body of light, and working with these energy rings that work around your body, you then can go into, I believe it could be a sphere of light. I don't know how others would perceive you, or an orb of light, and you can move around and be in different places at different times. So light holds consciousness. Light holds vibration. Light is what we are. We are the light. That's all we're made of. And so when we go into these higher consciousness states, our consciousness becomes the light, and that is who we are. That's our soul, our personality. It's what we are. And then we can move through other worlds and see things. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful for anybody that's curious and wanting to look into some of this stuff on a deeper level. And again, there was more to my post that I had done, but I will put it on my website. I will let you read it. I just tried to give you kind of a Cole's Notes, and hopefully it will help somebody. I'm sure it will, because I'm not the only one out there, I'm sure, that's gone through this process, that's maybe searching for assistance. And if people are going through an awakening, I can try to help guide you if you want, because you do need help as you go through this process, because it can be maybe a bit frightening or scary, especially if you've never experienced any beings on the other side. You might not know what's happening to you, and I just want to tell you that you're not necessarily going crazy. But what does happen if you do not stabilize your body properly, grounding yourself, doing all the proper things, eating properly, taking the vitamins, like looking after yourself, I do think that it is possible that this is where people go potentially. And I'm not a doctor, but I do, what I've been shown is there is that potential of feeling that insanity where you feel like you're going crazy. And there were times that I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on with me? But I've looked into it. I've checked on myself. I've done all the right things. I made sure my hormones were in balance. There's many things you need to do to make sure your body is in perfect alignment at all times. And, if I cheat, eat or something, I feel it. I go back onto my regular sort of regime that I do. And another thing that happened as well, and this will be the last thing that I will talk about today, but eating wise, I felt that I wanted to eat and drink more liquid. I wanted to have more of a liquid diet, and that actually served me very well. I made sure it was very nutritional, but for whatever reason, as your body goes through this transformation, it can't handle heavy food. It's becoming lighter, and so you need to eat to match the vibration of whatever your body is. So if your body's at a higher vibrating state of consciousness and vibrating as an energy field, you need to eat for your vibration. So if you're feeling like the food's so heavy and it's making me sluggish and sick, you need to change your diet to a lighter type of diet, either going through a fasting period where you might not eat till a little bit later in the day and then eat. I'm not saying starving yourself, but I did find that my desire, I didn't really feel like I needed to eat. I actually ate just to make sure I'm not like getting low blood sugar or anything else. But I was more eating just because it's a habit, and it does sustain the body, but I could go for longer stretches without needing food. And not that I was trying to, I was not hungry, and it didn't cause me to have ill health or anything. But I'm not saying starve yourself. Please don't start doing that. But fasting on and off is actually a very good way to reset the body. And it did help me to stabilize. And again, hormonal check, making sure that that's all in balance, because people can have issues if their hormones are out of balance that do lead to potential mental illness and other problems. So I made sure I went through the proper process of checking myself with a doctor, making sure that everything was on order. And then I did end up getting a naturopath, and I did a conjunction of both doctor, naturopath, just to make sure I was staying on a proper alignment. So anyway, hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whenever you see this. I love you, and again, contact me if you need to just try to understand some things that are going on in your life. Have a great day. Bye.